FPL Game Week 14 top transfer targets. Of course, do not forget it is a Tuesday evening deadline, so videos are coming at you thick and fast. And in this one, we're going to have a look at some of the best players to buy going into the upcoming deadline. We're going to discuss defenders, midfielders, and forwards in a slightly shorter, hopefully easier for you to get your listens before the deadline on Tuesday evening. Transfer targets for Game Week 14. What is up, everyone? FPL Harry here. Before we dive in, 2,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you're new around here. And as I said, do not forget, every single time there is a midweek deadline, I get people in the comments saying, oh, I missed the deadline. Oh, I forgot to make the transfers. If you're listening to me say this, do not let that be you. There is a Tuesday evening deadline. There is the matches that evening. So we're going to have a look at some of the best players to buy. We're going to do it in a slightly cut down version, but we are going to discuss defenders, midfielders, and forwards. Before we dive in, these videos are always sponsored and powered by Fantasy Football Scout. This is what I use to get the data, to make the decisions, to look at player comparisons, to look at fixture tickers, who has the best and worst upcoming fixtures, to make my transfers, and to recommend throughout these videos as well. So if you want to check it out, there's a link in the description still offering a discount. Now, to discuss some of the players that you are considering selling before we have some players that you might be looking to buy. Starting off in midfield, first of all, is Bruno Fernandes. Now, Arsenal away, Manchester City away in 2 of the next 3 is not ideal, with Forest at home and Bournemouth at home as the other fixtures is not the best. There is also a little bit of doubt every week exactly where Bruno Fernandes is going to play in the system that Amorim has got. Yes, they scored 4 against Everton, but they're not going to play defence on a team that lets them have the ball like Everton do every single week. Bruno Fernandes at 8.5 million is a reliable minutes option going over Christmas, so he's definitely not a priority sell. He's not a sell unless it allows you to get a Saka, Palmer, or a Mo Salah into your team. If you can do Fernandes to any of those 3, then yes, I would do it. We have a similar case for Brian and Burmo elsewhere in your midfield. I already have those 3, so I don't think I'm going to sell in Burmo this week. But if you want to go to a Salah, Saka, or Palmer this week, I would sell in Burmo first over Bruno Fernandes, just based on game week 17. The fixtures for Man United look quite nice again, and you might want to go back to Fernandes, but you probably won't from Burmo. If you have all of those 3 premiums though, I'm not sure these are massively worth it unless the money you free up allows you to do something a bit different. Looking up front, Erling Haaland, 15.1 million. I think we say it now, he is a sell. Yes, if you've still got him, you might actually look at the next couple of games as a bit of a differential. Forest at home, Palace away, and think, yeah, I might keep him and hope they turn it around. But when there are cheaper forwards and midfielders outscoring him pretty much every week, I can't really give a case to keep hold of him. And finally, we're going up front, and it is a painful one for me, and it is Chris Wood. He's been one of the reasons I'm at 25k now, is how good he's been so far this season. However, the fixtures now over the next sort of 7, 8, 9, even 10 game weeks start to look a little bit worse for them. There's a lot of away games. There are some difficult matches in there as well, and there are some definite other forwards that look very appealing. Now, Chris Wood is not a priority sell. You could look at Manchester City away this week and think that's not a red fixture at all anymore. And if that's the way you think, that's absolutely fine. But I do think there are some forwards that will probably outscore Wood over the next few weeks, and it's painful for me to say that. Next up, having a look at some defenders in the cheaper bracket. Kirkes was the number 1 option that I said last week, and he will remain the best of the cheaper ones. Out of the 4 million, there's not really anything you could have a look at. Harwood-Bellis, you could have a look at Burgess or O'Shea at Ipswich, but none of the 4 millions are really worth buying. Kirkes at 4.4 I like. Konza for the next 2 of Brentford and Southampton, despite not being great defensively, Villa at the moment is not a bad buy. And then you've got Wan-Bissaka again. They have some nice fixtures coming up over the next few weeks. They're starting a nice run. People are looking at Bowen. He scored in back-to-back games. So I don't mind him, and I don't mind Emerson as well. The only thing about Emerson is he's had some slightly early subs, which would put me off going with him. If you have a little bit more money, I don't mind Joe Gomez as basically what Canate could offer with a little bit less goal threat. But 4.8 million is a way into one of the most solid defenses in the league. I absolutely don't mind that with the fixtures they've got coming up, and I've got my eye on bringing Joe Gomez into my team. Aïnouri is still a reliable option. Yes, if they concede penalties like they do at the weekend, he's not going to get a lot of clean sheet points, but the attacking points are there, so it's not the end of the world. And then we're going with Levi Colwill. The Chelsea defence in Colwill and probably Cucurella are getting a little bit of a look in. I would probably go Colwill out of the 2, just because I know Cucurella picked up an assist at the weekend. Generally, he's not getting as far forward. He's not 100% going to play in the same system every single weekend. Whereas Colwill is just reliable. He's 4.5 million and he plays centre-back and he should play every single game. and he's probably my favourite out of the cheaper ones, as Chelsea have not been quite as bad defensively as I thought they would. Then having a look at slightly more expensive defenders, Gabriel, the best defender in the game. If you don't own him, he should be a priority for you this week. Even with Man United at home, he scored, he is yellow flagged, but we do expect him to be okay. Next up is going with Van Dijk. Now, Van Dijk versus Gomez is a bit of a debate, but Van Dijk is the long term. When Konate comes back, he'll take Joe Gomez's place. He also has goal threat. He definitely could have scored against Manchester City. Then you actually have the debate of Van Dijk versus Trent, because there's actually now only 0.4 million between the two in Van Dijk and Trent. And Trent looked really good. He had several shots against Manchester City. I don't think there's that much to pick between them. I probably would go Van Dijk slightly cheaper over than Trent, but it is very, very close. I wouldn't go with Robertson because when Tsimikas comes back, you have a little bit of a rotation risk. So if you're spending the money, you may as well spend it on a nailed option in Van Dijk or Trent. And then we've got Jurrien Timber. Doubling up on Arsenal is still something I like. I would probably go with him over Saliba. But if you want a nice, safe, boring option that is definitely going to play every week, you're going to get that with Saliba, and you're not guaranteed always to get that with Timber, although I would expect he starts Man United and Fulham in the next two. Those are the top defenders. It depends what budget you've got. I really have my eye on Gomez, adding more Liverpool into my defence, given that I've got double Arsenal and maybe Levi Colwill as well. Then having a look at some midfielders. So depending on cheap, mid-price and expensive. Starting off in expensive, Salah, Palmer, Saka should be the most priority players in your transfers this week. If you don't own all three of these, they should come first as a priority on all transfers, no matter what else you are considering doing this week. They are all great. They will have good short-term fixtures, good long-term fixtures, and are on absolute form and the best players in all of their teams as well. Outside of that, if you want a slightly cheaper option and you own them, Mitoma is probably the best one in and around that price, but you have missed Southampton at home. But I still think he is probably the most nailed for 90 minutes every week Brighton attacker that you've got. Next up, we look at Spurs. I've gone with Kulusevski. Now, he didn't start at the weekend, but I do think he's the most minutes safe out of all of them, and they just look much, much better when he's in the team. You could also have a look at the likes of Brennan Johnson or Maddison. I would go Brennan Johnson out of the two of those. He did score at the weekend, but we did see him get benched the week before, and there is a slight minutes risk when they play so many games. So I do think that Brennan Johnson should be safe enough, but if I was buying, I'd go Kulusevski. A lot of you are looking at Jared Bowen. They do have nice fixtures over the next 5 or so weeks. He's not a bad punt, but I'm just not sure I love enough what I'm seeing from West Ham. Now, form is definitely not there, but sometimes fixtures bring form. And if you want to take that punt on Bowen as an Mbeumo replacement, I would understand why you do it. But when Kulusevski and Mitoma are cheaper, that's why they're higher up this list. Marcus Rashford in at number 4. He didn't play that well in the first game under Amorim once he joined, but in the game at the weekend, he scored twice against Everton, played 90, and looked pretty good as he played as one of the number 10s and not as the main striker. He could be one to keep an eye on as a bit of a differential going forward and potentially even a better pick than Bruno Fernandes. And number 5, we've actually gone with Martin Odegaard. If you don't want to double up on the Arsenal defence, you can definitely tell they are a better team now Martin Odegaard is back in it. Man United at home this week. He's almost certain to play every single game for them unless they're winning it comfortably and they might come off early like him and Saka did at the weekend. Moving into the cheaper ones, I've actually gone Kluivert as the number 1, and you might think this is a bit crazy, but if he plays 75 minutes every week and is on penalties, and they have runners like Evan Nilsson, Semenyo, and others in that lineup, I actually prefer him over Semenyo, and if I was on wildcard, I would go with the cheaper option. Now, he doesn't play as many minutes as Semenyo, so Semenyo is in at number 2 and might just be the safer one for minutes, but Kluivert on penalties is a big thing. Then we're going with Rodgers in at number 3. Yes, they have a lot of fixtures, but he is reliable. He is playing for Aston Villa. I do think there is a small chance, though, he doesn't start both of the next 2. Ahmad with 3 assists in the past 2 games for Manchester United is one to absolutely be considering. Just the next few fixtures of Arsenal away, Forest at home, Man City away, might be a reason to just wait, because he is playing wing back. Is it going to continue with the amount of returns that he's getting? And with the fixtures, I would probably just hold off. And then we've got Smith Rowe. Couple of difficult fixtures on the horizon, but long term they don't look bad. And I have my eye on actually going back to Smith Rowe as a potential Mbeumo replacement in the long term. To have a look at one more who I know I'm being asked about, and that's Enzo Fernandez of Chelsea. That is 3 attacking returns in 2 games, and he's playing much more as a sort of number 8, number 10, compared to what we've seen him playing much deeper previously for Chelsea. Now, I don't know whether that's going to stick, and I don't know whether he's going to be there every game. So it's difficult for me to recommend him, and I'm not sure I'd go buying him yet. But he is one I'm absolutely keeping a very close eye on. If he continues this role over the next few games, will absolutely be one we're considering for the nice run of Chelsea fixtures. And then finally, we're moving up front. So, of course, Alexander Isak looks like he's injured. We'll wait on any news we get on that. And, of course, people are looking to sell Erling Haaland. Ollie Watkins at 9 million does have Brentford at home, Southampton at home in the next two. The data's not bad, but he looked a very frustrated figure up against Chelsea, and I'm not certain he starts both of the next two. I'm almost certain that John Duran will start either 14 or 15, because after 15, they have a midweek game on the Tuesday away at RB Leipzig in the Champions League, which they basically have to go and win now. So I'm not certain on it, and I'm not certain I'd be paying 9 million despite how appealing it looks on paper. Then you've got Jackson, who feels like the one that a lot of people are looking at, and I've spoken about going to him in my team selection video that was out yesterday, even if you have not watched that yet. Southampton away, Spurs away, Brentford at home, and the fixtures long term are really nice. He is on 4 yellows. He might miss a game, but I think for what you're getting as part of that Chelsea attack, it is worthwhile, and I feel like I made a mistake buying Isak initially. Cunha I still like. I still think he's worth it over Strand Larsen, despite Strand Larsen scoring twice at the weekend. I still think Cunha is the main creative option, and he's got good goal threat as we've seen previously, and he's just the talisman and the main man, and the fixtures continue to be really good there. Evanilson is interesting. The open play goal threat is not that good, and now of course he's lost penalties to Kluivert, and he's not playing 90, and I already own Semenyo, which makes it quite difficult for me to recommend him, but he is playing at the front of a team who like to create a lot of chances and are scoring a lot of goals at the moment. So I don't massively dislike the Evanilson pick, but at 6 million, and given I have Semenyo, I probably wouldn't do it. Then we're having a look at João Pedro. Although he blanked on Friday night and the positioning was not absolutely fantastic from him, I do really like him. They're getting him up to fitness. He's starting to look better as he did in the 2 previous games before that Southampton at home game. I think he's still a really nice option. Jackson, Cunha, and João Pedro are my top options. If you want to punt on Evanilson, I don't mind it at all, but how often are they going to win 3 penalties? And then Watkins, for me, despite him being appealing, is probably a no-go at his price. So that is all. We have very, very quickly discussed defenders, midfielders, forwards, and a few players to potentially sell this week. It is, of course, a very rapid turnaround. We had my team selection last night. This video, the Know The Score podcast, if you want to watch that, will be out at 6 p.m. on Monday evening. And then we'll have final decisions on Tuesday morning before a Tuesday afternoon deadline stream. Set your notifications, subscribe to the channel, and like the video if you have not already. As a reminder, do not be the person who misses the deadline. Just hitting all the deadlines in a season will have a massive boost on your rank. You might not think it, but a lot of people miss the deadline, so don't let that be you. Any questions that haven't been answered in this players to buy about specific transfers, drop it all in the comment section down below. Thank you all for watching, and I'll be back again very soon.